This is my intro. There are many others like it, but this one is mine. Hi, Free Palestine. Let me say that again. Free Palestine. One more time. Free Palestine. Hi, I'm Dan, and I've heard rumors lately that YouTube is cracking down on free speech. Because I am not a professional YouTuber, I'm a hobbyist. I don't really care. So I hope my message will reach people, but I'm not going to compromise my message. I'm not going to say unalived. I'm going to call a spade a shovel. I'm going to talk about today a man who did kill people. So I'm not going to say that Baghat Singh unalived people. He killed people. He killed British police officers, colonial police officers, as part of a colonial struggle. And that brings us to the topic of today's video. Who was Baghat Singh? If you talk to every school child in America, they know who Gandhi is. None of them, or I should say very few of them, know who Baghat Singh is, unless you're like me, who was one of those kids that was chronically on Wikipedia when they were younger instead of doing school. Baghat Singh was an Indian communist revolutionary in the early 20th century. He was born as part of a Hindu monotheist religion. I'm not going to pronounce the name because I'll butcher it, but I'll leave a link in the description. Later in life, he would become an atheist. He would become inspired by anarchist and later by Bolshevik ideas. He was a fan of Upton Sinclair, the American socialist author, and he was also a fan of Vladimir Lenin. And he famously cited Lenin's book, Leftism and Left-Wing Communism and Infantile Disorder. So why don't we hear about Baghat Singh here in the West? Well, the thing was, unlike Gandhi, who was a religious conservative counter-revolutionary, Baghat Singh, for all his ups and downs, was a real committed revolutionary. And he was a committed, maybe not a Marxist as we can say because that hadn't been formalized at the time, but he was very much Bolshevik adjacent, let's call him that. As always, I'll post some of his works in the future. So Baghat Singh was born in the Punjab region to a relatively well-off family. He would eventually become a revolutionary. At one point, he would bomb a British police officer for killing a man at an Indian protest. This was at a time when India was being bled dry by the UK, and most of the other revolutionary leaders like Gandhi or Nehru would rather bow to the British than they would give an inch to the proletariat. And that is the reason why we don't hear about Baghat Singh, because in his own beliefs, he believed that the real revolutionary potential in India was out in the countryside, the farm workers, the proletariat, the factory workers. Gandhi, meanwhile, said, "We shall not tamper with the proletariat, for it is dangerous." Because the last thing that the leaders in India wanted to do was wake up the people. Once you wake them up, they won't go back to sleep. So eventually, he would be involved in the bombing of India's quote-unquote parliament, basically a puppet government run by the British Viceroy. And later in his life, he would be executed. And so today, he's one of India's most famous figures. He is, like I said, he was an atheist, he was a revolutionary, he was a man who was seriously, like I said, scientifically minded in that he wasn't just running a cult of the gun and the bomb. He wasn't like the Joker who was just saying, "Everything burns, baby." He was actually considered about what he did. And while communists don't normally approve acts of terrorism, in his case, he symbolically bombed the Parliament building in order to create publicity for himself, to create publicity for his revolutionary cause. He would later on go on to do a hunger strike in prison, again, to get favorable publicity and push his agenda. And he was said to have inspired many of India's youth. One of the things that I'm putting in the description is something to you young organizers, because he was about organizing people. It wasn't just him. By his own admission, he was an arrogant man, but he wasn't doing it for the reward of God, or to be reincarnated as a king, or because he would be the future dictator of India. He was honestly devoted to the cause of freedom. And that's probably why you don't hear about him at all in the West, because he's genuinely a dangerous, subversive figure, especially once you start to read his works. And I do recommend his works. They're pretty easy to read. He's quite a gifted writer. He's very to the point. And so I hope this will give you some thought. So as of today in India, they're run by the Hindutva Party, which is a semi-fascist Hindu nationalist party. But there is a rather strong communist presence in India. They control several state governments, and they are the ones fighting for freedom and equality. Those are the places with the highest standard of living in India, which I don't want to get into it here. I'm not going to get into whether the Nalaxite movement in India are reactionary or reformist or not, but they are a large, viable movement, and they are doing much better for people's well-being than the Hindu fascist government, which can only peddle in racism, sexism, and bigotry. So anyways, thank you for joining me on this short video. I hope you're having a fantastic day. This has been Dan. I will see you around. Please remember to like and subscribe, and free Palestine.
This is my outro. There are many others like it, but this one is mine.